recorded vote that to the best of each council member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session.
Second.
Okay, can we vote on that? Okay, motion passes 5-0. As we enter the moment of silence, I would like to note the passing of a couple of people. One is the former mayor and planning director for Charlottesville, Mr. Satyendra Huja. Got to first know Mr. Huja as a student in 1988, and then we became friends and mentor, and just would miss him dearly. As I got on council, I would go visit him frequently and let him know what was going on in council, and he was still educating me. Just instrumental in so much in the city, from the downtown mall to the Dogwood housing, and I learned today he had a lot to do with the Riverview Trail, and I think that as I talked to other people like Mr. Williams, and he would mention things, well, Mr. Huja did this, and Mr. Eugene Williams. So it's a lot that he did, and I think that we realize so much that is the impact that he had, and others might want to say a few words up here about it. But I also want to note the passing of one of our unhoused residents. I think was known as Joe, lived by the transit station, and I know that staff and our community partners did a lot to try to reach out to him over the years, and he passed, I think, yesterday or a couple of days ago. So I'm going to give others an opportunity to speak, and then we'll have a moment of silence. Lloyd, did you want to add anything?
Well, I noted a Facebook post that seemed to have gotten wide circulation. The Huja was in many ways the architect of the downtown mall. He was one of the big pushers behind it for many years, and he understood something that people who have started pedestrian malls in other parts of the world haven't always understood, which is that you don't just start it and forget about it. You've got to keep working on it, and you've got to keep building on it. And for example, when it started out as just a 4-block mall, and he was pushing to have it lengthened, and he pushed to have what we now know as the Omni Hotel built, and then to encourage the city to help bail it out when it was going through some financial troubles. He was instrumental in getting the pavilion built. Trees were an important thing for him on the mall and all the way around the city. We got our first tree ordinance under Huja's leadership. He was very, I remember when I was on the Planning Commission, one of the things we would do every year at our Planning Commission retreat was he would present us with every year a new thought exercise of some sort. And one year the thought exercise was, imagine that the University of Virginia packed up and moved to Culpeper. What would Charlottesville be like then? And I have to say, honestly, I had never thought about that possibility, but it triggered a lot of good thinking. One of his other thoughts was to encourage us to make use of the Rivanna River as something other than just, hey, you've got to get across it to get into the city from the east. So it was just a lot of things that he did that were, always full of ideas, and sometimes you had to say, whoa, let's not so fast. But there was usually some real wisdom behind them all, and we are a much better city for his having been part of our leadership for so many years.
So, Lloyd, I use that analogy a lot. What if when I'm talking to neighborhood groups, if you pick up Charlottesville, move it to Culpeper, I use that a lot. I now realize kind of where he may have used it in a planning class many years ago. So I I didn't know where that was implanted in my mind. So I don't know, Brian, if y'all wanted to say anything. Y'all may not have known Mr. Hooger as close as Lloyd and I did. So we're going to have a moment of silence for ourselves, maybe Mr. Hooger and Joe. Thank you all so much. The next item on our agenda is announcements. Are there any announcements that we have? We do have a proclamation, but we have some announcements. Yes.
Yeah, I would move to make appointments to boards and commissions. To the Charlottesville Economic Development Authority, Gareth Gaston and Quentin Harrell. To the Human Rights Commission, Marianne Doyle and L.D. Perry. To the Police Civilian Oversight Board, Alzea Alvarez, Kyle Dobson, Jeffrey Frazier, W. Andrew Fry, and Shenandoah Titus. To the Tree Commission, Eric Bretter, Hannah Brown, and Meredith Keppel. And I would just note for the Tree Commission, the appointment for the Belmont Neighborhood Representative has been postponed, and I believe we'll seek additional applications as well.
I'll second that list.
Okay, can we vote? Okay, the motion passes 5-0. I just had a couple announcements. Sam, over the last couple of weeks, I continued to get emails and calls about the Postal Service, and I know that's not really in our court, but I think many residents are just really frustrated that it's not, and they're just reaching out. And I know that we have reached out to Senators Warner and Kane, and I know they're doing a lot. I just want to make sure we're, assure them that we're doing all we can at our level to express our concern of the Postal Service. So we hear you, we understand that it's not ideal. We didn't get our insurance, for our cars. So we just reached out to our agent, but you kind of get used to those notices coming through the mail. So for the residents out there, we will continue to reach out, and hopefully that it will get resolved soon.
Got a quick one?
Yes.
I just want to give a little reminder for those folks who won the e-bike grant from the city to come by City Hall to meet with our bike ped coordinator, Tommy, to pick up your vouchers. You've got 90 days to use it, and I don't want you to miss out.
So we're now at the time for proclamations. Is someone here from the center at Belvedere? So we have a proclamation for them. We have already delivered it to them. They're celebrating their 65th year, have a very rich history, and they're in a new building, and they're just doing great things in the community. They had their big program last Friday where the Board of Supervisors chair, actually it wasn't the chair, it was Ed Malik, who was had a lot to do with them over the years, and I presented. They had a big program. So thank the center for their work over the years. And you have one.
Yes, I also have a proclamation for National Invasive Species Awareness Week. Whereas an invasive species threatens Charlottesville's tree canopy, which is essential for neighborhood health, safety, and resilience against climate change by providing shade, reducing the heat island effect, and sequestering carbon. And whereas invasive species disrupt ecosystems by displacing native plants and animals, alternating natural processes, and posing a significant threat to biodiversity. And whereas invasive species impose substantial economic burdens, costing the U.S. $120 billion annually in prevention, control, and damages to agriculture, fisheries, forests, and infrastructure, while also impeding transportation, water systems, energy production, and outdoor recreation. And whereas the spread of invasive species is accelerating due to human development and disruption, making control efforts increasingly challenging. Therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Charlottesville City Council, declare February 24th through 8th, 2025 as National Invasive Species Awareness Week, and encourage residents to participate in efforts to raise awareness and protect our community's urban tree canopy from invasive vines.
Is someone here with that? Oh, great. if someone here wants to take a picture, you have that opportunity. If you'd like to say something, you
I would. Should I speak into the microphone?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you all so much for recognizing the importance of controlling invasive species. My name is Ruth Stornetta, and this is Joanne Daly, and we represent some of the many member organizations of the Charlottesville Invasive Plant Partnership that is sort of hosting this week and putting on several different events. And I just wanted to highlight two of those events. I'm leading an invasive awareness walk in Penn Park on Tuesday, the 25th, meeting at 1:30 by where the golf carts are stored at the dead end of the Park Road, where I will point out some of the invasive species that are present in our park, and I'm sure in all of our neighborhoods as well. There will also be a wrap-up event at City Space on Friday the 28th from 4:30 to 6:30 with all our partner organizations, including the Master Gardeners, the Tree Stewards, Blue Ridge Prism, the Master Naturalists, et cetera, tabling for information, and we'll have some refreshments, and everyone is welcome. It's open to the public. Thank you.
Can you just repeat those two events very briefly, just location, time, and day?
Okay, on the 25th, the Invasive Species Awareness Walk at Penn Park will meet at 1:30 in the afternoon by where the golf carts are stored at the dead-end circle of the Park Drive into Penn Park. And that will be approximately 2 hours. It's about a 2-mile round-trip walk. And then the event at City Space on Friday, the 28th, will be from 4:30 to 6:30.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that we're going to be doing an invasive management workday at Greenleaf Park. Our volunteer group is full with students from UVA's Lorax Society who are going to come out and help us in Greenleaf Park, my neighborhood park.
Excellent. And
That'll
when
be
is
on-
that?
That'll be on Saturday, but if we're not taking new volunteers for that one. We've got some great
You got
students
enough,
helping us.
Amazing.
Did you want to
There
get
was a Lorax Society.
Pardon?
I didn't know there was a Lorax Society.
There's also a forestry society that helps us a lot.
Did y'all want a picture for your?
Sure, yes.
Okay. Yay. Yeah. Thank you. So we're now at the opportunity for Community Matters, and we have 3 pre-registered speakers and leave an opportunity for 13 additional speakers at this time. And the first speaker is Jeffrey Levine.
Good evening, councilors.
Good evening.
Jeff Levine, 600 West Main Street. I'm pausing because I wrote down this nice speech. I think I'm actually going to go rogue and just go off book and just talk to you. And I was thinking about Hooja might actually be interested in this conversation. I was at a meeting yesterday, literally yesterday, with a local nonprofit housing organization discussing the project I'd like to do at 200 West Main Street, which proposed to have over 200 apartments and the affordable housing that goes with it. And we were discussing how we could possibly collaborate and take a part of the building and leverage their resources to have even more affordable housing than minimally required. And we got to the part of the conversation where we talked about what are next steps and what to do. And I said, well, no one could tell me what I can build on this site. And of course, he looked at me quizzically, as maybe people online in the audience are going, what are you talking about? We adopted a zoning ordinance a year ago, and it tells you what to build. But I explained, and I pointed out to you, there's a part of the code that gives the BAR zoning review rights. It's a safeguard, I guess, and it allows them to drastically change massing. It can cut down height, it can require step backs, and basically determine whether a project can go forward or not. As a developer, the task I undertook in the better part of the last year, informally and most formally in the last 4 months since November, is spend time in BAR hearings discussing what those conditions would be as far as step backs and height to see what that would be so I could get approval. It seems to be going well, and I was hoping to get approval tomorrow night. But after spending a lot of time with Jeff Werner and kudos to him and Kate and Kelly and everybody trying to figure out how to execute and implement this code. There is no way for the BAR to stamp approval of these are the conditions we require. That is concerning. So I'm here asking for your help, please, to be able to put a stake in the ground as to what this envelope can be. And it's important for me to say envelope because it's just the massing. None of this circumvents zoning review, design review, city engineering review, or anything else. It's just how to go forward under this. And my suggestion is that the BAR make a recommendation to City Council as these are the conditions we're requiring under that clause, height, step backs, and City Council adopt it. And let it be known. It's interesting, tomorrow night I'm also looking for a demolition COA for the same project. And I believe, you can get that, and I believe that's fundamentally founded on, well, a developer's not going to go through a year-plus process to find out that the building that's there cannot be demolished. So the BAR gives you a COA that you can demolish the building. Similarly, a developer can't go on a year-plus process and find out that at the end the building can be cut down dramatically in height. So I ask you please to take action, and urgency is critical here because we're at an inflection point of this project. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We're discussing it, as council now. Thank you so much for your time, willingness to work in the city. The next speaker is Deanna McDonald.
Good evening, Council and leadership. My name is Deanna McDonald, founder of RN Heartwork Health Education Coaching and Consulting. Since 2023, I have partnered with the Fifield Neighborhood Association to follow up on the Cherry Avenue Small Area Plan that sought to address food justice and specifically access to affordable, healthy foods, and to address the proffer that Woodard Properties made for rezoning related to a grocery store at 501 Cherry Avenue. On behalf of the citizens of Charlottesville who made their voices heard, in line with the Fifield Neighborhood Association, who recently documented that the food co-op is the strongest fit for their community, the Charlottesville Food Co-op Steering Committee, that is made up of Fifield residents, 10th and Page residents, and other residents with deep roots in Charlottesville and connection to Fifield, we ask for your support of the FNA request for monetary support, and that you specifically earmark any designated funds and possibly from the surplus for the Charlottesville Food Co-op to ensure that area residents finally have a grocery store that serves their needs, their health, and their future. I would also like to ask that the Charlottesville Food Co-op be placed on the agenda, possibly for the March 4th or March 17th City Council meetings, and ask that the present committee members and co-op supporters here please stand and be acknowledged in your support. Today, Carmelita Wood, president of the Fifield Neighborhood Association and co-treasurer for the Charlottesville Community Co-op, shared with you that I am here to share the results of the 6-month community engagement Cherry Avenue Grocery Community and Stakeholder Engagement Initiative that wrapped up in December. We learned in that process that there was a bit of misinformation surrounding the grocery store. The community at large thought that the grocery store was a done deal and that Woodard Properties was going to donate it to the community in exchange for their benefits and profit from the partnership and the housing development. They were very surprised to learn that approximately $4 million is needed to purchase the space in Woodard to actually build a grocery store. However, during our Buy Back the Block developer forum in September 2024 and at other meetings, Woodard stated that they could lease the space for a grocery store. Over 500 community members from Fifield, the sister neighborhoods, and communities at large responded to our engagement, and the message was loud and clear. A grocery store that is community-owned, food co-op, or led by an owner or operator with deep local neighborhood roots is the desire. I wish to also reinforce that this is not just about food access. It's about economic self-determination in a historically Black neighborhood that has faced generations of disinvestment and displacement. The Fifield population is still over 50% Black. Moreover, another important fact that the Equity Center at UVA recently published is that Charlottesville at large, 47% of Black families do not earn enough to meet their basic needs compared to 18% of their white counterparts. The economic reality contributes to higher rates of diet-related illness like diabetes, hypertension, and poor mental health. We are aware of the Good Foods entity that has expressed interest. We know that that model is natural health foods and does not bring affordability to the community, nor is it a cultural fit or community fit for the neighborhood, and stores like that generally contribute to further gentrification and displacement.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We have received several emails on that issue, and I know that the city manager and their staff, that they're looking into that. I wasn't aware of the request for a meeting. We'll be in touch with. Would you be the contact for that? Okay. The next speaker is Paola? Yes.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Paola, and I've lived in Charlottesville for the past 8 years, and I'm here tonight as a steering committee member for the proposed community-owned food co-op at 501 Cherry Avenue. This project isn't just about opening a grocery store, it's about restoring power and stability to a neighborhood that has long lacked access to fresh, affordable food. Fifield and surrounding neighborhoods have faced decades of food insecurity due to systemic barriers causing residents to rely on convenience stores and distant supermarkets for basic groceries. The recent closing of Reed's Market has further heightened the urgency for a sustainable, community-driven solution. Over the past few months, I've been in conversations with community members through the Buy Back the Block events that I've seen a strong, passionate movement. People aren't just asking for change, they're ready to build it themselves. Our organizing team includes individuals with experience in food justice, public service, cooperative development, community health, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, and so much more. This is not just about Fifield issue, it's a Charlottesville issue. A strong community-owned regional grocery store benefits the entire city by strengthening the local economy, supporting regional farmers and producers, and ensuring that fresh, affordable food is accessible to more people. When one neighborhood lacks access to healthy food, it affects public health, workforce productivity, and the overall well-being of our city. A successful co-op will keep money circulating locally, creating jobs, stable jobs, and provide an economic anchor that serves all of Charlottesville. We don't have to look far to see that this model works. Food co-ops in Harrisonburg and Fredericksburg have thrived, proving that this approach is financially viable and community sustainable. Unlike corporate change, which extract wealth from communities, decisions are made with the well-being of local residents in mind, not corporate profit margins, keeping money local, creating jobs, and ensuring fresh, affordable foods stay accessible. For this vision to become a reality, we need the city's partnership. We need real financial and structural support to ensure that this co-op is built for long-term success. We're asking for $1.5 million to be invested in the food co-op. This isn't just about food, it's about economic empowerment, public health, and making sure that the neighborhood like Fifield are not left behind in the city's growth. We're prepared to put in the work, the community is engaged, the momentum is here, and the time to act is now. I urge you to stand with us, invest in this cooperative, and help us bring food justice to Charlottesville. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We now have the opportunity for 13 additional speakers. Anyone from the audience? Yes, please.
First of all, can you hear me with my mask on?
Yes.
Because I can't take it off, so.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor and councilors, city manager, good evening. I'm Colette Hall. I'm at 101 Robertson Lane in the city. Heard on the news that we wanted to talk about the budget because there was going to be something on the consent agenda voted. So I thought I better get down here. I heard on the news that there was a $22 million surplus. And I think the taxpayers think, regardless of what the council says, or the city manager, the taxpayers do think that amount is way, way, way too much. Now, the city manager said, and this is a paraphrase, that when a department makes up its budget, it's an educated guess. And so at the end of a fiscal year, if there's a few $1 million left over, that's not surprising. But $22 million is really egregious and outrageous. Last year, it was voted on to have a 2% increase in the tax rate up to 98 cents per $100. Well, I am asking you, and I'm sure the rest of the taxpayers who live in this city would probably agree with me, or most of them, not to increase the tax rate this year, especially with a surplus of $22 million, which I understand most of you want to put that in the CIP budget. So I got and also last year, the assessments rose. And also last year, I believe you increased the taxes on entertainment, food, lodging, that sort of thing. I don't know. I don't have money to go to those places. So if you did, then I think you did. So I got my assessment, and Mr. Mayor, you're right. My mail came late, so I just got it yesterday, because I'm not getting mail anymore, even though I live in the downtown area. From 1923 to 24, my assessment went up 16.35%. 16.35%. Those of us who can live in Charlottesville will also become homeless or will have to move out. I lived in Charlottesville now, I'm in my 36th year. And I don't know how we can keep affording that. I had another issue. I don't have time, but the main issue I have brought to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Susan?
Hello, good evening. It's nice to see all of you. I'm Susan Cruz. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Climate Collaborative, or C3, also a 26-year Charlottesville resident. And I'm here tonight to just sort of acknowledge two great things that the city has done. One in particular, I wanted to thank Mayor Wade for signing on to a letter to Congress, to the U.S. Congress, asking for protection for all the clean energy tax credits that have been made available. Right now, we know a lot of crazy stuff is happening in the federal government, and there's a lot of programs that were promised and committed to localities, states, communities that are being cut. And so I just personally want to say thank you. There were only 2 mayors in the entire state of Virginia who signed on to that letter, and Mayor Wade was one. The other was Mayor Avula in Richmond. So C3 is really proud to work in both of those cities. So I wanted to say thank you for that. And in support of that effort to really accelerate clean energy adoption in our community, the city's sustainability team, led by Crystal Rittervold and Emily Irvine and Deputy City Manager Ashley Marshall, have helped us launch the Energy Resource Hub for the community. And I want to make people aware that that is now available. You can go to energyresourcehub.org, and it is one-of-a-kind database in our community that will give you local, state, utility, and federal tax incentives and rebates for clean energy adoption. There's really nothing like it anywhere. And not only that, but the city is supporting LEAP, the Local Energy Alliance program, and C3 in directly assisting local Charlottesville businesses and households in reducing their energy costs. And this is just a really fabulous resource for the community, and I'm very proud of City Council, Mayor Wade, and city staff for taking these initiatives to really protect our ability to continue to accelerate clean energy adoption and climate action right here in Charlottesville when so much is when so much is going wrong at the federal level, it is nice to see our local community stepping up and leading the way. So thank you all. And yeah, check out energyresourcehub.org. It's a beautiful website. It's a great resource. And we're having a launch party on March 11th at Carver Rec Center for the entire community, and you can get in-person assistance with rebates if you're a business or resident of Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Albemarle County is also supporting the initiative. So thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you so much. Yes. Other speakers? Anyone? There'll be opportunity at the end. Yes.
Hello, Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Lisa Drain. I live in the Locust Grove neighborhood. I'm just coming to support what my colleagues Deanna and Paola have said. I'm on the steering committee for the newly formed food co-op, and we're asking for $1.5 million from the city from your surplus to support this initiative. We have a steering committee of about 25 people, multi-generational, multiracial, and multi-talented. And we hope that you'll consider this as a model for addressing food access issues, especially in areas that are known as low-income, low-access neighborhoods. And we think that a co-op which is owned by, run by, and democratically governed by members of the community would be a great asset to have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm beating a dead, beating a dead dog to death. I'm also standing for the food co-op, but I want to take it to another level. On one end of Cherry Avenue, if you ever driven through there, it smells like a weed factory. They're selling lottery tickets, beer, and they're convenience stores. That's what they do. I don't have a problem with that. But this is an opportunity to sow a seed for our children. If we want our children to learn something, we have to do something for them to learn. And this would be a good opportunity where the schools could use this co-op. It would be a field trip within the community that the teachers could build and use their lesson plans on. So this is not just a co-op for the neighborhood, but it's something for our children. It's a seed. And I'm asking you all to water that seed this evening. Think about it.
Thank you. Other speakers for right now? Yes, Ms. Murray.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, okay, it's on. Ziona Bryant, Charlottesville resident. Two things. So I want to definitely amplify and elevate the requests for the funding for the co-op. Ms. McDonald and her team has done a lot of community engagement, and they've had a lot of different forums and small meetings and big meetings, and I think that they've really captured a wide range of opinions and people who align with and who support their project. So please fund it. Additionally, fund our schools. I think that I was at the budget workshop last week, and I think that the request is clear. The schools need more funding. Mr. Wade, you were on the school board. You understand the need for funding. You understand that our buildings are outdated. You also understand that we have a school bus driver shortage. So there are a lot of things that need to be funded in the schools, and with this surplus, I really hope that you consider giving more funding to our schools. It was mentioned earlier that we need to plant seeds and we need to invest in the education of young people in our community because they are the future, but they're also the now. So fund our schools and fund the co-op. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to speak right now? Okay, we have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Right now, well, I'm closing. You just playing with your pencil? Okay. We'll now go into the consent agenda.
Consent agenda, number 3, minutes, December 19th, 2024, joint council school board work session. January 30th, FY26 budget work session, February 3rd, regular meeting, February 10th, joint council school board meeting, February 11th, special meeting. 4, resolution of appropriation to amend the FY25 budget, $27,851,605.84, second reading. 5, citywide bicycle infrastructure program, a resolution creating the e-bike grant program fund and appropriating $150,000 in existing funds from the Bicycle Infrastructure Capital Fund and Climate Action Fund, second reading. 6, Safe Routes to School program, a resolution appropriating $229,803 for Safe Routes to School program non-infrastructure grants, second reading. 7, resolution to approve reimbursement of $285,861.38 for Buford Charlottesville Middle School project, one of 2 readings. 8, a financial resolution supporting Kindlewood Friendship Court Phase 3. 9, ordinance amending Chapter 25, Social Services, Article 3, rental relief for the elderly and disabled persons, to correct a drafting error.
Is there a motion?
Could I ask a question
yeah.
about one of those?
Yes.
Item 7, resolution to approve reimbursement of $285,861. So that's for, I know it's for vape sensors and other,
It was. There were some last-minute requests for the Buford renovation that the schools requested. It was
that
not part of
coming-
the project budget, but they had the funds, and so they passed them along so that we could get that done for them.
so that's coming out of one of their budget line items or something?
It is. I believe it's coming out of their surplus, but I'm not sure about that.
Well, okay, thank you.
And then likewise, just a question on item 4, the appropriation of the surplus. I know we've held off on specific allocations in part because of so much uncertainty at a federal level. Could you remind us again when we should expect recommendations on allocating any portion of it, if that is to come?
I'll say that at this moment, I'm not rushing to bring a recommendation. I was planning to talk a little bit more in the city manager's report about, I am referring to it as Fed Watch because of what is happening in DC with the various things that are being proposed. We need to do some internal homework, and that is underway, trying to identify what are our federal resources that are within our current budget, that are a part of our proposed budget that I'll be bringing to you on the 4th of March, with the ability for us to anticipate, should any of those things get interrupted, what will be the plan for addressing that? Some of it will be a matter of we can offset through what we may have, so the surplus becomes a source for possibilities to do some of that. It may lead to cutting programs. It could ultimately require reduction in force. That is not a statement that I want repeated in a way that people get alarmed, because we know nothing at this time. So nothing is being proposed, but I think what I'm stating is there's urgency around the fact that there's uncertainty happening at this moment. So I'm not rushing to bring any planned use of the surplus yet. We are, as of yesterday, I would say, finalizing the proposed budget for you. So now I shift into preparing the message to you on the 4th of March to make sure that I can explain to you and the public what the FY26 budget looks like. And I'm being very deliberate and a bit conservative in how I propose that to you. There are some things that are urgent things that we will bring to you shortly. But at this moment, I wouldn't say that there's a big spend of things on that list just yet.
And then not counting, grants, it was about $30 million we received from.
So we were speculating when we came up with 25 to 30 million, and I had our grants manager begin some work with the team, and we have clearly identified $15 million that is in this budget this year. And that is money that would spill into the next year. So that is concerning, that amount of money. We never know what part of that is going to go. we have an additional $3 million of ARC funds that were carried over into this year that are deployed for this year, this calendar year. And if any of that were interrupted, that means activities would not happen. So I'm trying to anticipate some of those and hoping that we have the ability to smooth some of that out should it happen. And then we will continue to look to see if that number climbs. But $15 million right now of clearly identified federal funds, I know that number is not high enough because there's state money that we recognize as state that is federal in its origination. So that too becomes a part of what is concerning.
Thank you.
Okay. So is there a motion to support the consent agenda?
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second? Okay. The consent agenda passes. We're now in the city manager's report, and I think you kind of got into.
I started it.
Segue.
So I'll finish that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chrissy and Kevin, who are going to speak to you. To not appear tone deaf, I hear you in regards to the request for support of the co-op. No commitments, as I tend to do from this seat. I will reach out, have a further conversation. I am engaged in the conversation twofold on Cherry Avenue. As many of you know, the Lowberry Shelter is a big hot topic. I tend to find myself in controversial discussions. And the co-op and grocery store concept, whatever it ends up being, is of interest. We are working on that internally, have been a part of conversations, plan to continue to support more public conversation about the option on the grocery store and the option as it relates to the shelter. So both of those I would love to bring forward with the recommendation. There are ways that we can support the grocery store that won't necessarily exclusively require cash, and that's part of what I'm considering as well. So that might actually expand how we can participate. And I meet with the Economic Development Director tomorrow morning to begin those conversations. So I will reach out to Ms. McDonald and arrange a conversation so that I am aware of everything that I might need to know about the co-op side of things as well. And that's what I'm going to say. And then I'm going to turn it over. We have a quarterly financial report. Are you speaking too? Okay. So Chrissy Hamill and Kevin Roddy are going to speak, and maybe our city treasurer.
Good evening, council. Remy, can you pull up the report, please? The other, that's one, but the quarterly report first. Thanks. So we're here tonight to present the second quarterly report. These are for results through December 31st. As we talk about this, and as we've talked about the surplus tonight from some of the comments, the one thing that we are looking at here in particular are the revenues. And as of December 31st, approximately 46% of that revenue for this fiscal year has been collected. Excuse me. Our largest tax revenues, as you know, are real estate and personal property tax. Excuse me. The general reassessment just came out in January, which indicated an overall residential value that increased about 8%, with commercial values increasing about 6.48%. So overall, real estate assessments were up over 7% at 7.74. So one thing I want to point out to you, and we'll go to the chart next, is that this quarterly report looks very different than the quarterly reports that we've been showing you for the last 2 years. In particular, you'll see that this revenue report is showing a slight revenue surplus of just over $2.4 million, or 1.13% of the budget. Last year, in comparison to this time, we were talking to you about a revenue surplus of $9.4 million, or just a little over 4%. You'll notice in this chart that as we've talked about, the real estate and the personal property tax revenues are up, but you will see some negatives here, which is an unusual thing. We have not seen this for quite a while. Both the lodging and meals tax, despite tax increases in '25, are both trending down. In addition, our sales tax is weakening, is below our budget projection. And then there's a slight decrease to the cigarette tax as well. So those decreases are actually driving what we have sort of been talking about is what I'm going to call the return to, quote, normal after COVID. A lot of the increases that we've been talking about during this time, we do feel like were based on a COVID recovery. They were unusual, they were hard to project because they were largely determined by human behavior. But what we think we are seeing now is something that's a little bit more of a modest increase from year to year. And we do not anticipate, revenue surpluses like we've seen. So last year of the $22 million surplus, a little over 14 million of that was revenue surpluses, which, as this chart would indicate, we are not projecting that this year. So with that, expenditures seem to be tracking fairly close to budget. We're about 58% spent at about halfway during the year. We are still continuing to monitor vacancy savings, which was a very large contributor to also the surplus last year. We're also going to be talking to you about some very different things we're doing to address that in the 26 budget as well. And so with that, I'll stop. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add, or if you all had any questions before I turn it over to Mr. Roddy. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin Roddy. He's from PFM, our financial advisor, just to give an overview of some economic stuff.
All right, good evening. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be before you. I was asked to give a little bit of economic commentary, and I wanted to start out by saying I'm not an economist, so I, very, very difficult job to be one, but what I'm hopeful of helping you all with is just giving a little perspectives on the news out there, and there's certainly, obviously, a lot of news. As Sam said it best, uncertainty is the word of the time that we're in. When we look at the overall themes out there, it's just a really difficult time to project where the economy is going to go with the new policies, the changes to trade, regulation, fiscal spending. It's really hard to project the direction and the various variables and how they're going to react to each other. So I echo what Chrissy said. I think y'all are doing it right. Y'all are looking at your own budgets. You're looking at trends. I sympathize with Chrissy coming out of COVID. Really unusual times for everyone. When we look nationally, I looked at a recent report done by Weldon Cooper projecting this, and what they're seeing is what they're projecting is that the our gross domestic product is going to slow this year. It's going to increase, but it's going to be at a slower rate than it has been recently. Job growth is going to decelerate, meaning that there is going to be job growth, again, slower than what it has been. Certainly the potential for the reduction in the federal workforce, they echo in there just to be careful on how that's going to directly impact Virginia. When we look at Virginia, we're in a little bit better position than the rest of the nation. The expectation is that GDP will track that of the nation at a growth rate of 2.4%. Inflation will be a little bit less, which is favorable, but job growth in Virginia will also slow. Hopefully, and the projection is that the unemployment rate will be lower than the national average, but there will still be pockets out there. In terms of how this can potentially impact municipalities, there's a couple things we're advising our clients to keep a really close eye on. The first one is the potential government shutdown. The debt ceiling was reinstated on January 2nd of this year at $36.1 trillion. And when we say trillion, that's 12 zeros behind the 36. Massive number there. It hadn't really, people haven't felt that impact yet because the Treasury has been spending cash on hand to get us to this point. But there's the potential for government shutdown in February of this, or in March of this year, in the next month or two. And if there isn't action taken to either suspend or raise the debt ceiling from where it is, the potential does exist of a default in the U.S. payments on their debt. That's never happened. We keep our fingers crossed that that's not going to happen and that Congress will come to some sort of resolution. But again, these are uncertain times. It's going to be a political battle, and so hopefully we don't get to that point. Currently, 13% of the U.S. budget is spent on debt service payments, interest payments, 13% of our overall budget. So this is a massive number and problem that people are working through. The other, that'll happen in the next couple months, so we're keeping a close eye on that. The other thing that really could potentially impact local governments that GFOA and ICMA are all over is the potential elimination of tax exemption. As you know, when we issue bonds every year, we get a tax-exempt interest rate. It is on the list of items that the Congress is looking at to potential close the reconciliation gap between the 2017 Tax Cuts Act actually expires at the end of this year, and so decisions have to be made on that. The president wants the tax rates to stay where they are, but they have to come to some sort of agreement to close the gap on that. So that would be very troubling for municipalities all across the U.S. Instead of us being able to issue at tax-exempt rates, it would raise our interest rates about a third of a 1.5 times currently where we are currently. So that's something that we're closely watching. Other areas, the pending tariffs on such things as steel, could that raise our cost of construction and get embedded in our CIP? Certainly something we want to look at. The continued inflationary pressures on your budgets as we're working through that, and as you've heard a couple times tonight, the increasing property values and putting the pressure on citizens. So there's a lot out there that is currently being faced. In terms of our annual issuance, this is an interest rate chart of last year. You can see it bounced around. Last summer we did a bond sale in August. We timed the market well at that point. We got a cost of borrowing at about 3.15%. Since then, interest rates have gone up a little bit, but the forecast is for currently that hopefully the Federal Reserve and the overall interest rate environment will improve slightly through the year. We're expecting another bond sale this summer, so we're hoping for lower interest rates when that comes along. But if I can leave you with one thing, just continue to carefully monitor your budget, be cautious. I know we had a large surplus. These are difficult to budgets are done so far in advance. It's difficult to plan there, but all the expectations are that it's going to be a much more slow growth than we've seen in the past. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Is there anything hopeful?
That's That's a great question. It's just, I think as a local government, all you can do is watch and react and, try to, the timing is difficult because the new administration, all this is coming out at the same time you're trying to build a budget. So we're talking about reacting to it, but, I think it is the year to be, conservative and putting this together. And I know that's hard to do coming off a surplus, but, that's the expectations are that things are going to slow.
So, I'm curious as how is Charlottesville positioned with other cities you may work with? You don't have to name the cities. I'm just curious, are we kind of typical? You mentioned that the impact of the no interest bonds. I forgot the exact terminology. That's going to impact pretty much every city.
That would.
Yeah.
If they eliminated tax exemption for municipalities, that applies to hospitals, universities. UVA gets to borrow at tax exempt interest rates. The state government, that would, instead of the chart I showed you earlier of last summer, we borrowed at 3.15%. We would be more just under 5%. So that's real interest dollars that it would impact you. It's getting a lot of push. The Congress is aware of this. The GFOA, the government finance officers, are making people aware that it's just basically passing the cost down to the localities. And so hopefully that won't occur.
Right, but just in general, is Charlottesville pretty much in the same boat as others? I mean, we may be a little bit better because we have a little surplus, but it's not anything unique as far as you see what's going on that we're in.
I would say yes. I would say y'all are in a very similar position. The report that Chrissy gave, people are seeing that same things, and trying to really digest it. Like, it feels like, everything is still going strong. Why is sales tax off significantly? Why is transient occupancy? Why are meals? What behaviors are changing? And so I would say you're consistent. You are very consistent with other localities, or as they are trying to, digest the new consumer behaviors.
Brian or Lloyd, do you have anything?
No, I appreciate it. That was very insightful. Thank you.
Michael, do you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you for your assistance.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Chrissy, I'm not sure if you had more.
I did not. Thank
Okay.
you. Do you have anything else?
Thank you. Thank you. Sam?
I could say a lot, but I'm not. I think we're going to just, that was a sobering presentation. I hope it landed the way that it should, because it means we have serious work ahead as the world changes, and that's what's happening. And I think it's going to find its way to our budget, our locality as well.
Okay, so was that kind of the combination of your city
Yes,
manager report and
that's-
quarterly update? I just want to make sure.
That is all of it, yes.
Okay,
Is
so.
there anything else you'd like to tell us?
Yeah.
No, fine.
The next item is an action item. It's a public hearing for an ordinance for temporary area easement for the Verve in Charlottesville. It's a PUD at 409 Stadium Road. Matthew will give us.
Yeah, great. I'll follow that. City Council, Mayor, you'll be holding a public hearing tonight for a temporary aerial easement for construction of the Verve, which is the PUD at Stadium Emmett in JPA. This is a 5-year, up to 5-year temporary easement to allow construction. This is the location of the site I think we're all familiar with. And then there's a corresponding plat that goes with the deed that shows the location of the 3 cranes. These, again, are temporary. This is a large building, 12 stories. And so the cranes are needed to construct the building, and they will swing over public right-of-way. And so that is the reason for the temporary temporary aerial easement. Again, you're going to hold a public hearing, so you'll need to gavel into a public hearing, hear from the public. You can close your public hearing, and this is an ordinance, so you can either take no action, move it to consent for your next meeting. You could waive that, as you've done in the past with ordinances, and take action tonight. With that, I can answer any questions. The applicant is also online if you had any questions.
Okay, before I open up the public hearing, I ask councilors if you all have any questions or comments, you can chime in now.
Yes, thank you. The circles on the drawings indicate that the crane reach would be over, the crane span would be over roads. Is it over houses as well?
No, just over city right-of-way, so not over any private residence. Anything where the crane would impact aerial areas, they would need permission from either of those. If they went over a private property, they'd need permission from the private property. Same with UVA. If they went over UVA, they need permission from UVA.
Got it, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions right now?
I'm just curious whether there is some sort of standard for folks doing cranes like that, about how high above the roadway anything would be.
I don't have, I know Hunter with the construction crew is online. We would have to update him to a panelist, but maybe could answer how tall these cranes are, but I don't have that information offhand.
I mean, is it likely that it would be lifting something, for example, off a truck that was parked in the city right of way?
This is not so much for that as it'd be just lifting material, kind of like a counterweight within the construction site, but needing to swing it over the right of way. There's, as far as I'm aware, there's no plans to shut right of way for unloading trucks. They would, if they did that, they would need to work with the city traffic engineer for temporary closures, but they might not be that far along in their preparation.
And they can't swing over the roads without some sort of clearance in terms of like flaggers and so on.
Correct. If they had to close, there would be a road closure plan in place for any time they needed to do that.
So it's mainly for the ballast on the other end?
Mainly for the ballast as they're moving materials within the site. And I would say the cranes are at least 13 or 14 stories to do the 12-story building.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, from councilors, I open up the public hearing and so, yeah.
You may have answered the question already. It's just. Yeah, could you put the plat back on again that has the picture of where the cranes are going to swing around? Because we live right there, right? You know, the crane swings here and we're right.
Remy, I'm having trouble
right
backing
there.
it up. There.
Okay, yeah.
Where you want
We're
this?
Montebello Circle.
Up on the
And even
left.
has our name on it. So, yeah, I'm Ellen Contini Morava from 225 Montebello. So the question that we have is, so if the cranes are going to be carrying building material and heavy stuff, when they swing across the roads are going to be closed off during those periods, or exactly? We're just trying to figure out what, how it's going to work.
Since we're public here, I'll let council do if you want to.
Yeah, so if you can finish all your questions and comments, and we'll take it.
Okay, so
And try
that's
to
one.
get you an
The other
answer.
question
Yeah.
is just
Yeah.
about the hours of operation, but we're guessing that they will be within the hours that the construction's already going on. So if there's any difference from that, we would be interested to know that.
So we'll see if there's other comments, and Matthew, if you could summarize when you come back up, that would be great. Anyone else would like to speak on this matter? Okay, Matthew, if you can respond. I think you have to some degree, but
Matt, did you say that the construction manager or someone is online?
Yes,
We probably should let
Hunter
them.
should be registered.
Yes, guys, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Awesome. I can address the loads over the public right-of-way. That will not happen. We do have Stadium Road closed, that connection between Stadium and Emmett. We're going to do most of our loading there. as in picking loads off of trucks and things of that nature. But other than that, when it comes to swinging loads, loads will be swung over our property, as in the property that the development is happening on. We just easily trolley the load in to ensure we are not swinging any loads over the public right-of-way.
And who was that again? His name?
My name is Hunter Klein. I'm the project manager for John Moriarty and Associates.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this before we take action? First of all, are there any other public comments? I just want, before I close the public hearing. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any other questions or comments from council?
I'm inclined to support this. I just feel like I have to ask the question, are there any safety concerns? This feels like it's pretty road.
There's not any real safety concerns. We've done this in the past. McIntyre is a good example where we've given temporary easements to allow this kind of crane construction.
Yeah, feels standard. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can we get a?
Do we need to close the public hearing? Or?
I did.
You did.
I did.
Sorry.
Yeah. So can I get a motion to?
I move for putting this on the next meeting's consent agenda.
Second.
Okay.
It doesn't actually need a vote.
Oh.
Oh, that's right.
But you could vote tonight to move forward if you wanted.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say what I said. I support putting on the next meeting's consent agenda.
As do I.
Is there any construction timeline rationale for expediting it?
No, I think being on the next agenda would be fine. They're still in the process of demo on site.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So it would be on the consent agenda at the next meeting. I don't think it seemed like it'd be support for that. So, okay, thank you. In the written report, this.
I would just, like I always like to add for the community, this is the Land Use and Environmental Planning Committee, which is the only body for coordination between Albemarle County, the University of Virginia, and Charlottesville City Government. And for the activity from the summer through December, we've received a less than one-page report which contains no meeting minutes for any of the meetings. These are meetings that we as elected officials are not allowed to attend, nor are the media, and that is the entirety of the coordination between the University of Virginia and our local governments. And I think this less than one-page report speaks to the quality of that relationship at the moment.
Okay. This is the second time for community comments. Would anyone like to come up and speak and say anything? With no other business, their motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second, can we vote? Thank you.
We are adjourned.